and a spider, a wolf spider, was on my arm and started crawling up my arm. And my photographer I was working with that day is amazing at lighting. Like, I swear that spider was so well lit. You could see its legs like crawling up. And somebody messaged me on Facebook and said, Shannon, oh my God, there's a spider on your arm. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Because I felt something, but thought it was, a bug or something. I ignored it because I'm focused on the live shot, remember? So I didn't notice it.
Welcome to the Next Level Journalist, where you will hear from some of the best journalists in the business or who have been there, done that, and willing to share with you what they've learned so you can get better, faster.
My guest today is a news reporter at the Fox affiliate in Dallas, Texas. Shannon Murray, thank you so much for making time for this today.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. This is so fun and it's good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. So as we talked before we jumped on here, 12 years since we worked together in West Texas, little Odessa, Texas, and here you are now in Dallas. And partly what triggered some of this is when I talked to Jose, our former news director, and he talked about your perseverance and how you broke through and got your first job and just how you had graduated. It had been a while since you landed your first job. And that's, a lot of people can resonate with that. But it's so cool to see how that struggle turned into seemingly a lot of success. I mean, you don't get to Dallas by chance, by accident. So let's talk about your journey a little bit. Tell us a little bit about when you first knew that this is something that you wanted to do, and bring us up to speed. I know that's a big time period, but in a Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, so it goes back to high school. I had been part of our high school news team, Eye of the Panther News at Duncanville High School, which is a suburb of Dallas. And I loved it. And I actually thought I was pretty good at it. I had a teacher who really encouraged me, and I knew I wanted to go to UT in Austin, but wasn't sure what I wanted to study. And she actually pushed me to study journalism. She said, you're such a good writer, and I really see you pursuing this, and it could be something really good for you. So at that time I was like, okay, sounds good. Just let's do that, journalism. But I still didn't know for sure what I wanted to do. I did some internships in college, and even doing the internships in college, I felt like, man, these reporters seem really stressed and I don't think they're making too much money. I was very unsure even at that time, but I thought maybe I'll do PR or marketing, or, when you're in college, sometimes you're just not that worried about what comes next. You just hope things fall into place. And so I really wasn't sure, but I graduated in 2009 in the recession, and it was impossible to find a job. I made all my DVD copies. I'm sure you did the same thing. We had to make actual DVD copies back then and physically send them out to stations all over the place. And I was just applying all over Texas because that's where I grew up and my family was here. I applied a couple out of state, but mostly all in Texas. I think I sent out 60 demo reels. And yeah, like Jose probably told you, I was not hearing back from anybody. And if I did hear from them, they would say, sorry, we're on a hiring freeze. Like, I'll put your tape in a file, but we really don't have anything right now. There's nothing I can offer you. So I really was at the point where I thought, okay, maybe this just isn't in the cards and I'll pursue something else. I actually had a job interview at a resort in Austin for a guest relations job, random. But I got that job, and I was going in for a second interview, basically to fill out paperwork and accept the job. And that's when Jose called me from Odessa and said, hey, just saw your tape. Can you come in for an interview? So I called the guy over at guest relations at the Lake Austin resort and explained what was going on. He said, I totally get it. Go pursue that, see what happens, and just let us know. And I ended up getting that job, and I accepted it on the spot. And so it all worked out. But if I had taken that other path and gone into who knows what I would be doing now? I mean, I probably it could have been a great job and great life living the resort life in Austin. I have no idea, but it really seemed like it was meant to be, because I remember Jose offering me the job, and I right away, without even really reading the contract, I was like, yep, sounds good. Where do I sign? And he said, well, you may want to, he was a great boss in the sense of, like, he took care of us kind of and cared about us. He knew we were young. He was almost like a father figure in some ways, or like an older brother. He was looking after us a lot. So he was like, well, Shannon, think about it a little bit, talk to your parents, make sure that you read through the contract and you're all good with everything. And he knew that I really wanted to get back to Austin eventually. So he advised me, he said, let's put something in writing in your contract that, because I had an out, which for people watching, means that I had a 3-year contract, but I could leave early. My out was at 2.5 years if I got a job in a top 50 market. And Jose said, well, I know you really want to be in Austin. So let's put a line in there that says top 50 or Austin.
Wow.
Even though Austin was technically a top 50 market, but he was like, what if it slips and it falls out of that? Because it was kind of on the cusp. Mm-hmm. So he really helped me out and I wouldn't have even known to ask for that. I was not sure what a contract even meant or looked like. So he really looked out for me and helped me out. But yeah, I think it took about 6 months before I actually heard from Jose and went in and got that job. And I had that gut feeling when I went in there. I'd never been to Midland, Odessa. It was, 5.5 hour drive from Austin. I didn't really know where I was going or what was going on out there, and I really hadn't seen any of the city. All I knew was Friday Night Lights. And so but I went in that newsroom and I met a couple people. Everyone seemed cool. And I just right away was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This feels right. Mm-hmm. So you have that gut feeling sometimes.
Yeah, that's so cool. And you're right about Jose. He was like, a big brother in a sense. I mean, we played flag football together. I joke with some other people, like, I think that was a prerequisite if you're a male that you actually had to be involved in sports. But yeah, Jose was looking after us.
Team. That's how he hired people. You'd be great on my flag football team, actually.
Yeah, no, but you're right. He looked after us, and that's so rare in this business. But he was a solid guy. So if anyone wants to see that conversation, I'll link that also, so you can check out Jose and what he had to say. But back to Shannon. So Shannon, you go from Midland, Odessa to Austin, right?
Austin. Yes. And I knew that I had that out in there that said I could leave at 2.5 years. And I will say that is the point in my career when I was the most persistent, not because I hated Midland, Odessa, not because I was miserable. I had a great group. As you know, we had a great group of friends out there. I had a surprisingly good time in Midland, Odessa, covered a lot of interesting stories and topics and just an overall very good first job experience. But I had outgrown it. And I knew I was at the point where I got to make this next jump. I need to make more money. I want more of a challenge. I want to learn from reporters who are better than me and more experienced. I want to work with those experienced producers who've been in the market or in the business for decades. Like, I just really wanted that bigger market experience. And I would reach out to everyone who would listen to me in Austin. I was messaging people, emailing, calling. I would go to news, like journalism conferences. And if there was an Austin news director or producer or anyone there, I would make sure I was at their session to listen to what they had to say and then go meet them in person. And so I had met all of the news directors in Austin and had made connections with them. And then I was very diligent about following up with them with emails, sending them links to my work. And I actually ran the Austin Marathon that year, and I had met the news director at KView, the ABC station in Austin. And I told him, hey, I'm going to be in town. I'm running the Austin Marathon. Like, I'd love to come by and see the station. And he said, okay, sure. And we set up a meeting. I really wasn't going to be in town that long, but I added on to my stay so that I could go meet with him. And I think that Jose knew about it. I was transparent with my current boss as well. And he understood. He knew that that's how it worked in those small markets. We were going to be making those jumps. And he was very supportive, thankfully. But I was transparent with him that, hey, I have a meeting with a news director. It's not a formal interview. It's just a meet and greet. So he knew I was doing that. But I went and met with him. And I remember the news director was Frank Volpicella, who I'll never forget. He was another really great boss who I was very fortunate to have. He gave me this list, this sheet of tips or info, kind of his reporter's like guide to being a reporter, things you must do if you work for him. And it would be silly things like you must have a stand-up in your package, or you have to have an opening line. Don't start your package with a soundbite. Like, he had all these little things that he wanted. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do all of these things. And so I went back and I made sure that every package I did met that criteria that he'd given me. And then I would follow up with him and send him links to the stories. And he ended up having an opening and called me and said, hey, you've been on, the top of my list and I've got an opening now. When can you start? And my out was already, I was already at that 2.5 year mark. So that day I went in and put in my notice and gave my 2 weeks and had the job in Austin. But I really think it was my persistence there because
Yeah.
I really, and it's good when you know where you want to go. That's very helpful, obviously, because I just knew Austin was the target, that was the goal. And so I was able to really hone in on those stations there and what were they doing and what could I bring and where do I fit and trying to get to know everybody. And I ended up actually having two job offers in Austin that ended up going to KVU at ABC. And I was there for about 3 years before I then made the move to Dallas.
I love that. I mean, just how laser focused you were. You knew where, you had the end in mind and how to get there,
Mm.
so you've already shared so much great stuff, Shannon. I want to go back to, you already touched on perseverance, but what was that moment like, or those months like, when you were trying to break in? And like you said, you almost went a completely different direction, and, divine intervention where literally you get the call as you're going back for a second interview. I mean, what were those months like though, when you were waiting and
I Yeah, I will say that it was definitely frustrating. It hurt my ego a little bit because I thought my demo reel was really good. I watch it now and it's hilarious to me. It
right,
just cracks me up. I posted it on Instagram recently because found the link to it, but it is it's embarrassing to me now. But back then I really thought it was good. And
sure,
so I was shocked that no one was wanting to hire me. And I think I had been one of those people in life who, when I applied for jobs, I got the job and I did well. And I had joined a sorority and I was president of the sorority. So I was used to like, okay, if I really put my mind to something, like I can do it. I'm talented, I'm skilled, all these things. So then when you're getting denied left and right, it really humbles you and makes you realize like, okay, this isn't going to just be so easy. It's not going to just come to me and work out. Like I've really got to keep trying at this. And I had some very weird job interview situations where, I went in for a job interview and then I'll tell this one story. I went in for a job interview, small market in Texas, did the interview, then never heard back. And I was like, okay, guess I didn't get this job. I kept following up, didn't hear anything. Months go by, few months go by. The same news director contacts me again and asks me to come in for an interview. And I thought, oh, this must be like a second interview, or like I have to fill out paperwork, or he has to do a screen test, something like that. No, he forgot that he had interviewed me the first time and interviewed me a second time. And I started realizing it as he was interviewing me. And this is like small town. This news director was a little kooky, and he starts asking me questions and I would start every sentence with, as I told you last time, da 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 da. And so and I think he started to realize like, wait, I do know this person. So then he starts backtracking. It was so awkward. Needless to say, I did not get the job there and I would not have taken it. Well, I don't know. I was pretty desperate. Maybe I would have. But I mean, I had a friend who worked at that station. I remember her being like, yeah, that he was a weirdo. It was a bizarre situation. And today it's like a funny story to me now. Like once I interviewed for the same job twice because I guess I made that bad of an impression the first time he didn't even remember me. So I had some weird experiences that were very frustrating. And yeah, I was just at that point where I was like, you know what, maybe this isn't in the cards for me. And I actually had thought like, that's okay too. Like I'll stay in Austin. I've got my friends here. That could be a great life. And, I've learned that like there are things outside of news, there's life outside of news. And I know that. And I know that I could have gone a different path and still been happy, but I do think everything really worked out the way it was supposed to. And like the timing worked out, the stars aligned. So I'm very thankful that it did.
all right. So you already mentioned about how you went from Austin to Dallas. Let's talk about what you're doing today and how you made that leap from Austin to Dallas, how that worked out.
So I took a different route for that job, and it was sort of a similar situation in Midland. When I got to Austin, I thought I'd stay in Austin forever. I love Austin. I had a boyfriend there, I had friends there, and I really thought this is my life now. Like I've made it. This is it. This is where I'm going to stay forever. But then I got to that same point where I felt like, okay, I need more. I want to do more. I had gotten to that point where I felt like, not that I had outgrown it necessarily, but I wasn't necessarily learning anymore. I felt like I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to go even bigger. And And frankly, again, like wanted to keep making more money. And in TV, if you want to make significantly more money in this business, you got to jump to the bigger market each time, because otherwise you're going to be getting those 2% raises every couple years. And that's not always going to cut it. So, I was really looking to just further my career and my future. And, I wanted to look towards other goals as well. So I ended up getting an agent, and the way I went about it was I was applying for jobs all over the place. I wasn't even looking at Dallas at that time. I was just looking at top 20, top 15 markets, wherever I saw job openings. So I was applying for jobs and also applying for agents as well. So sort of putting feelers out there just to see what happened first. I wasn't sure if I wanted an agent. I didn't like the idea of paying someone to find me a job when I thought I could find a job myself. But I had heard good stories from some friends who had agents and were able to get to those bigger markets and negotiate a good contract because their agent helped them out. And so, but you also hear nightmare stories about agents as well. So it can go either way. And whenever young reporters ask me about getting an agent, I just say, talk to people and you'll get a feel for if it's a right fit for you. But if you think you can get to that big market or that next market without an agent, then don't worry about it. But it did work out for me. I met an agent who I really liked and we really connected. And at that point, I didn't have a contract in Austin at KView, which was very unique. At that time, none of our reporters at that station had contracts. So I told her I'm ready to go as soon as I find the right job. And within 2 weeks, she said, hey, Robin at Fox in Dallas wants to talk to you. And I was like, wow, Dallas. And it wasn't that I didn't want to go to Dallas. It is my hometown, but I hadn't really considered it because frankly, I didn't think I was good enough for Dallas. I wouldn't have even thought to apply in a top 5 market. I was thinking like, San Francisco or Seattle, something like that. I was not thinking Dallas. That seemed so big to me. And I grew up watching those reporters and really looking up to them. And I didn't think I was on that level. So I was really pleasantly surprised and terrified, but went through the interview process. And it was also for a morning show reporter job, which is what I'm still doing now. But I was really apprehensive about that. I was like, I'm not sure if I want to do mornings. I don't know. I've always worked evenings. I'm hard news. I'm this crime reporter. Like that's me. I'm not morning fluffy. That's not going to be me. And my agent gave me the advice. She said, Shannon, just go get the job, nail the interview and get the job. And then we'll talk about if you want the job. And I was like, okay. So I ended up, it was the same thing as, when I went to Midland, Odessa, and I had that gut feeling when I went in there, like, oh, actually, I really like this station. I like all the people I'm meeting, and it just felt right. And I ended up taking the job, and now I've been here 5 years, morning anchor and reporter. I fill in anchor. And it's been really good. I actually love the morning show, and that took me by surprise. It was hard for me at first to show my personality on air. I wasn't used to that, but now I really enjoy it. So it's been a great experience.
I love throughout every single answer, you've just talked about how you, I wouldn't say hit a wall, but you were ready for your next step, your next level, and you were always aspiring to do better and better. So with that said, what do you think sets you apart? What do you think makes you unique and contributed to your success that you've had?
I do think I'm someone who follows through, and I really stick by my word. And I've met reporters over the years, young reporters who I tell them, hey, send me some of your work. I'd be happy to offer a critique, or email me and I'll keep you posted. I meet reporters who say, oh, I want to work in Dallas, or I want to work in Austin. And then crickets, I don't hear from them. And to me, that is so bizarre because I remember covering stories. We had some stories in Midland, Odessa, where it was national news, and the reporters from Dallas and Houston or CNN were in town. And I was over there shaking their hands. I was over there while they were working, and I was trying to be professional and say, hey, I really admire you. Like, thanks. I love watching you, kind of giving them some compliments, chatting them up and getting to know them while we were all out there working. And I got all their business cards, and then I emailed them, and all of them responded, because I think we've all been there where we were in the small markets and just trying to get better, desperately trying to just learn and make our tape better and trying to get to that next job. And I remember that. And so I always want to pay it forward. And of course, I've had plenty of reporters reach out to me for critiques, and I give it right back and do everything I can to like help them. But then sometimes you get people who just don't reach out. And I think and I make note of that. I think, wow, like, what does that say? Like, are you really hungry? Like, do you really want to be in this business? Because, we have interns, and I always tell them too, I'm like, get to know, because that's actually something I regret. At my internship, I don't think I took it as serious as I should. I think that I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do news. So I wasn't putting in that extra, the 110% that I should have been putting in as an intern. We have interns now, and I always tell them, I'm like, get to know everybody in this room and stay in touch with them. Email follow up, send them your links, because friend us on Facebook, Instagram, stay in touch every way you can, because we'll remember you, and we always want to help out like a former intern. And I think that, like, for me, I was just always very diligent about, I would just like cold email people in the Dallas market or in a bigger market, or I wanted to be in Seattle for a little bit. So I would email reporters there and say, hey, would you mind taking a look at my work? I had never met these people in my life. They always responded. And I've had a lot of people look out for me and vouch for me for that reason, because they got to know me through looking at my work. And those are people you can put as references on a resume too, if you really get to know someone in that way. So I think that I definitely learned, if you really want to make it in this business, it does take that level of persistence. And I also tell our interns, hey, this job, because I felt like that at the time when I was an intern, that it's stressful. You don't make enough money. Like, why are people doing this job? And I always tell our interns, I'm like, the money will come, the success will come. You'll be proud of what you're doing. You'll be less stressed in the bigger markets. In the first market, you're doing it all, and you're stressed and you're tired, and you're like, man, I'm done. This is breaking me. I'm not doing this anymore. But if you stick with it, it gets better. And I always tell our interns that, I'm like, if you really want to do this and you really enjoy it, all of those things will come. It just takes time, and that can be hard. And I know some people, maybe you don't have that option, or it just doesn't work out, whatever it is. And that's fine too. But I always try to encourage young journalists and interns for that reason, because I remember feeling kind of defeated at times, like, am I really going to keep doing this? It's too much. It's too hard. The hours are terrible. I'm working holidays. Like, no thanks. But it gets better. And you got to remember that to keep going, I think, sometimes.
I also like how you mentioned that imposter syndrome before, about like, I don't know if I really fit in Dallas, but clearly, again, just not by chance that you make it there. So how did you develop your skills? I mean, you went from basically a one-man band. Now you are, I'm assuming you're no longer lugging around camera gears, lights, and all the above.
No, but I will say we do have plenty of reporters in the Dallas market who are they call it the MMJ, multimedia journalists, doing it all. And they love it. And they're very proud of that. That's their brand, is they do it all. And they love doing it all. They love the shooting, the editing, the whole process. And it's a little bit different style. For me, that's not what I wanted to do. I actually really enjoyed shooting and editing, but I thought doing it all at once was too much. I really mostly enjoy the writing aspect, the interviewing aspect, the being live on TV aspect. That's what I want to focus on. And so it just depends on the person and which route you're going to take. But yeah, over time, especially that first market, and that's something I would never take back, is that experience in that first small market, because that is where you do all of it. You're running the prompter, you're producing, you're making cold calls at the desk, doing beat checks in the morning on a Saturday. You really, if I needed some video of a gas station for a gas prices story, I was like, well, got a few hours till the newscast. I'm anchoring, but I'm going to just run out and shoot some video of a gas station just because I don't have any file video. Or, I was doing these little things. Like, I really learned to appreciate the different roles, especially when it comes to producing, because I really value our producers who I have now at my station. And I remember how stressful it was producing a show, especially, we would produce and anchor our own show. And that was a lot. So I do think, over the years, I've really been able to focus in more on where are my strengths and what do I enjoy the most. And it definitely is writing and being live. I love to be live. And for me, I'm now on a 6-hour morning show and I'm live for 6 hours. So it's, I'm usually, if I'm reporting in the field, I'm live every hour, maybe multiple times an hour, sometimes for different affiliates across the country. It just depends. But I really have realized that's what I love. And I try to just really focus on that skill. And, when specifically with that I remember Jose actually telling me I had a bad live shot one time in Odessa, and he called me right after, which is I knew it was a bad live shot. And then I saw my phone ring and I'm like, oh no, like, why is he calling me? I don't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. But right away, he's like, what happened? I was like, oh, I got distracted. I was thinking about this, that, a train went by. Who knows what I said? But he said, Shannon, when you're doing a live shot, all you should be thinking about is that live shot, is just nailing that live shot. Then you worry about the rest. And that sounds obvious. It sounds like duh, but I think about that sometimes. I'm like, okay, you know what? Don't worry about anything else right now. Focus on this intro, this bit that I have to do live, and then I'll mess with the rest of it. But some of those little bits of advice you get over the years, I just keep those in the back of my mind and my repertoire. And it's something I still think about, those little things that I've been told over the years. And I try to keep, when it comes to being live, I try to keep things sweet, short, simple, to the point, and make it as conversational as possible. And to remember, okay, I'm the authority on this. I know what I'm talking about. Just trust yourself and go with it. And I don't get nervous before live shots anymore, but I used to feel that little bit of anxiety. So I think once you really figure out what your skill set is and what you enjoy and what your talent is, then you really can focus in on that and hone it and improve and continue to improve. I still try to watch my live shots back and see what I can do better. And I don't like watching myself, surprisingly, for someone who's in TV. I actually really don't enjoy watching myself, but it's important to do it, because sometimes I'll watch things and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm talking so fast, slow down, or that outfit didn't look good on TV. It could be any little thing, but it's good to look back and realize it, so for the future, and you do better.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I've heard people say that, I personally as well, like I would go back and I'd watch myself and look for those tendencies that I would do, whether that be being repetitive or hand gestures, whatever it may be. So it's refreshing to hear that, that someone even in Dallas, goes back and critiques themselves, always trying to get better.
I still have that imposter syndrome sometimes. You'll be at a scene or a press conference and you're with reporters who've been in this market for 30 plus years, and they're seasoned, award-winning journalists who have broken major stories and changed laws. And we're all sitting there with our mics up asking questions. And, you got to get out of your own head sometimes and remember, like, I'm here for a reason. I made it here. I was hired to be here. I'm good enough to be here. And sometimes you have to remind yourself of that. And you know how it is in TV. You could have a really good day and nail it, and you feel like, man, I am so good at this. Like, that was a great day, really successful morning. And then the next day I mess up, or I miss something, or someone at the other station beats me on a story, whatever it is. But the next day you start fresh and you start over again. So, you're going to have those good and bad days, and that's just the way it is. Like, you can't be perfect all the time. And a lot of us in news are type A or perfectionist types. And so it's easy to get that imposter syndrome when you feel like, oh, okay, I messed that up. I'm terrible. I don't deserve to even be here. Like, it's easy to get in your head like that.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Shannon, I want to respect your time and end with one fun question I like to ask people, especially people who've been there and done that for a while now. Most embarrassing TV moment that you can recall, whether it be a live shot out in the field or at the anchoring desk or whatever comes to mind, anything you can think of where you're like, wow, I remember that and I learned from that, or that was embarrassing.
Okay, I have two. Okay. The first one is a sports one for you. Okay. I am not a sports, that's not my area of expertise. Okay. But in news, as a reporter, we have to know a little bit about a lot of things. We're sort of
Yep.
like jack of all trades, master of none. So I was anchoring on a Sunday morning, and it was when LaDainian Tomlinson was being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I had never heard that name before. I did not know that name. And I must have missed that story when I was reading over the scripts, because it came up as like a cold read for me. I hadn't read that script. And his name is very long. So on the prompter, it was kind of like cut off.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, like, what are these letters all butted together? What does that say? So as I'm reading it, I said it like a question. I said, LaDainian? Like, I said it so weird. And I was so embarrassed, but thought, like, surely no one noticed. I immediately start getting tweets, videos. My phone starts blowing up. I'm sure you may have heard of the radio station, The Ticket. They took the clip and they made it into a drop on the radio. So anytime they talk about LaDainian Tomlinson, they play that clip of me messing up his name. And I've become like notorious for it. I'll meet people, like my boyfriend's friends who are really into The Ticket.
Yeah.
And he'll tell them, like, she's the girl on The Ticket who messed up LaDainian Tomlinson. And so they all like, wait, that's you. Like, that's become my claim to fame with certain, circles. Yeah. So it's so embarrassing, but it's turned into like something that I can laugh about and it's funny. But at the time, oh man, I was so embarrassed. I made an apology on air the next day. I was like, I apologize, because I felt, in a joking way, but I was like, oh, I have to apologize, because we were reading the same story about him again, following up on it. And I was like, I got to apologize to his mom. I'm so sorry. I should have known better. And he's pretty big name around North Texas. So I should have definitely known that. So that was embarrassing. The other one, I did have a viral video that wasn't so much embarrassing, but just weird. I was doing a live shot at the airport about a protest that was going to be happening later that day with one of the unions. And a spider, a wolf spider, was on my arm and started crawling up my arm. And my photographer I was working with that day is amazing at lighting. Like, I swear that spider was so well lit. You could see its legs like crawling up. And somebody messaged me on Facebook and said, Shannon, oh my God, there's a spider on your arm. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Because I felt something but thought it was, a bug or something. I ignored it because I'm focused on the live shot, remember? So
Right,
I didn't notice it. And then I called one of our producers. I said, was there a spider on my arm? I'm getting a message about that. So they went back and found the clip. And, I'm on a morning show. So they, of course, replayed that clip about a dozen times throughout our 6-hour long show. Oh, they slow-moed it. They zoomed in on it. They brought me back to like chat about it. I ended up doing radio interviews about that spider. I was on like different stations across the country. I remember Orlando calling me like, hey, we're wondering if you can do a talk back about the spider. I'm like, it was crazy. And I mean, it was on the cover of like time.com and Yahoo News. And the headline was, reporter acts completely calm as large spider crawls on her arm. And I'm like, okay, everyone, come watch paint dry. Like, I had no reaction. Which was good for me, that I didn't get all crazy, but that became the headline, like, reporter has no reaction as a spider crawls on her. So, and people still ask me about the spider today. I get a lot of messages, or random people in the community will ask me about the spider incident. So it was kind of funny. And I feel lucky that that was it. And I didn't, drop an F-bomb on air or something like that. Then I'd be out of a job. So,
Yeah, that got real interesting if you would have realized that was on you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had no idea.
I love how you handled both of those situations. Obviously, the one you really didn't know, the other one, what are the odds you actually didn't see that script? As anyone that was on TV, like me, myself, like I would go over my scripts too. The odds that you missed that one.
I said to our producer, I said, did you add that at the last second? I swear you did that. You should have told me. She's like, no, I didn't. That was always in the show. I'm like,
crazy.
And I would have looked up that name for sure.
Shannon, thank you so much for making time for this. It's great to see you, even in this virtual space. And congrats on all your success. It's been great catching up.
Thanks. Congrats to you as well. I love that you're doing this, and I hope it can be beneficial to other reporters, people out there looking to make it. And so this is cool. It was really good to see you.
And thank you for checking out this channel. If you found this content beneficial, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share it with someone you think might find it beneficial as well, because this channel was simply started and created to serve you, to help others grow, to learn how other successful TV journalists do or did it. So take what serves you so you can get better faster and reach your next level.